Chris Robinson woke before dawn to the sound of his own voice coming through the wall. Not literally, just memory. Last night's upload still looped in his head. You are looking at 10-foot swells and one very bad decision. Cut to drone shot, cut to his grin, cut to a wave smacking his jet ski hard enough to make the comments section split between legend and idiot. He needed both groups. Hate watch still counted. He rolled over on a mattress on the floor of his canal-side apartment and reached for his phone before his feet touched ground. Analytics first, pulse second. Overnight views had climbed, then flattened, then drifted into that dead slope he'd learned to fear. The one that told him the algorithm had already moved on. Subscriber gain, negligible. Watch time, decent. Click-through rate, below target. Sponsor email, unread, marked urgent. Chris tapped it open with his thumbnail and scanned while brushing his teeth in a bathroom where the mirror had a crack like a lightning bolt down the middle. Needs stronger week-over-week engagement to maintain current rate. He spat, rinsed, read it again. Maintain current rate meant rent, fuel, insurance on 2 boats he absolutely did not need, but constantly used for content, replacement batteries for his drone, and food that came from gas stations more often than grocery stores. 2 months behind on rent meant 1 more bad month and he'd be filming from his truck, if the truck didn't get repossessed first. By 6:30 he was loading gear into the bed anyway. Chest cam, backup action cam, drone case, handheld gimbal, dive knife, first aid kit, dry bag, folding kayak strapped on top because flexibility gets footage. He said lines like that to himself now, as if he were narrating the life he was trying to keep. On the way to the beach, he voice memoed a rough intro while stopped at a light. Good morning, Gulf Coast crew. Nesting season is active, so we are out here respecting wildlife and staying alert. He listened, frowned, re-recorded with more grit in his voice. Sounded more credible. People trusted confidence, not qualifiers. By sunrise, the public pier was already busy. Joggers, tourists with coffee, retirees with binoculars, a kid trying to throw chips to gulls while his mom yelled not to. Pelicans skimmed low over water the color of steel blue, turning gold at the edges. The wind was mild, tide moving out through the inlets. Chris walked the boardwalk with practiced purpose, camera clipped to his chest but not recording yet. He nodded at 2 volunteer turtle monitors setting up signage at a beach access point. They nodded back without warmth. He knew what they said about him, that he hovered too close to nesting zones, that he treated rescue tape like set dressing, that he'd learned just enough words, stress response, no-touch protocol, post-release monitoring, to sound responsible on camera while freelancing chaos off camera. He told himself they were territorial. He insisted to himself, awareness helped everybody. He told himself a lot of things when his numbers dipped. At the rail near the pier pilings, he paused to frame a shot of sunlight hitting the chop. A man in a fishing jersey recognized him and pointed. "You're that ocean rescue dude, right?" Chris smiled automatically. "Sometimes if I'm in the right place." The man laughed, then added, "Try not to spook anything this morning." A joke with teeth. Chris let it slide. He hit record and delivered 30 seconds of intro against the water, clean and punchy, with enough caution language to keep the comment police off him. Then he cut the clip, checked exposure and figured he had at least 1 usable open. He was packing the camera down when a scream tore across the pier. Not the excited kind, sharp, panicked, repeated. "Something's in the line, it's drowning." People rushed to the railing. Gulls wheeled and dropped toward a patch of churned water 20 yards off the end of the pier, where fishing line glittered in the sun like spider silk. A small, dark shell surfaced, vanished, surfaced again at a bad angle. Juvenile green turtle. Chris didn't think. He yanked off shoes, clipped his chest cam on full, and ran. "Call FWC, Marine Rescue Hotline now," he shouted as he jumped the lower ladder rail and hit the water hard enough to blur his vision. Cold flooded his ears. He came up spitting brine, heard phones recording from above, heard someone crying, heard himself start talking in that breathless, amped cadence he used when adrenaline and performance became the same muscle. "We've got a live entanglement, juvenile, maybe 10, 12 pounds, line around front, flipper and neck. It can't clear." He swam fast, ducked under the turtle as it thrashed, and saw the mess. Translucent monofilament cinched around the right foreflipper, looped under the plastron, snagged to something heavier below. Every pull tightened it deeper into soft tissue. The turtle opened its mouth in a silent gasp, eyes wide and glassy. Chris forced himself calm enough to avoid the beak. Dive knife out. One careful slice, then another. A strand whipped free and wrapped his wrist. He cursed, kicked to keep both of them near surface, cut again. Above him, tourists cheered too early. "Not yet," he muttered, mostly to himself. The final loop gave way with a snap. The turtle jolted forward, bumped his chest, then floated in place for 2 long seconds like it had forgotten what direction meant. Chris reached to steady it, stopped himself, and pulled his hand back. "There you go, go," he panted. The turtle swam 3 feet, turned and circled him once, then twice. Chris blinked salt water from his eyes. The crowd's noise dimmed into a high, distant buzz. The turtle surfaced, inhaled, and headed not toward open bay, but toward a thin cut between mangroves on the inland side, where no one swam, and signs warned against entry during restoration season. It surfaced again 10 yards out and turned its head, as if checking behind it. He knew better than to assign intention to wildlife. He knew better in theory, in scripts, in captions where experts watched. In the water, with his heart hammering and his camera blinking red, it looked like invitation. "Guys, this is wild," he gasped to the lens. "It's not leaving. It's... Hold on." The turtle surfaced again, same direction, same glance back. On the pier, people shouted things at once. "Is it okay? Where's it going? You got that on video?" Chris swam back, hauled himself up the ladder and ignored the tremor in his hands as he toweled salt off the camera casing. Viral calculus clicked instantly into place. Rescue in real time. Emotional hook. Unexpected animal behavior. Mystery destination. It was everything his channel hadn't had in months. He grabbed his phone, called the Marine Rescue Hotline, gave location and species, reported line entanglement and successful release. While he was still on hold for transfer, he was already jogging to the truck. The folding kayak hit the water in under 3 minutes. Drone launched from the seawall. Chris paddled toward the mangrove channel with his chest cam still running and his pulse climbing for reasons he didn't want to name. The cut narrowed quickly, sunlight fragmenting through arching roots. The air changed, cooler, stiller, full of mud and tannin, and the click of unseen crabs. The turtle kept a steady pace ahead of him, surfacing every few yards, each exhale a soft puff in the hush. He rationalized he was documenting post-release behavior for educational context. He told himself that twice. When the channel split, the turtle took the left fork into water so dark it reflected like glass. Chris followed, paddle strokes shallow to avoid grounding out. The drone feed on his tablet showed a maze ahead, snaking creeks, pockets of seagrass, dead-end shallows stitched together like veins. Then the turtle disappeared. Chris slowed, scanning for the next breath ring on the surface. Nothing. Mangrove shadows trembled in wind that didn't reach him. A movement to his right, a white shape jerking against roots. Not white, wing feathers. A cormorant hung half-submerged in monofilament, one wing pinned, beak snapping uselessly at the line cutting into its body. 20 feet beyond it, two small turtle shells broke surface and slammed back down, trapped in a mesh curtain stretched across tidal flow like invisible fencing. Chris's stomach dropped. He stood in the kayak for a better angle and nearly tipped. Under the water he could see it now. Ropes, crab pot lines, translucent netting, a web of abandoned gear snagged from root to root. Some of it weighted, some floating just below eye level, where animals would never see it until too late. In the mangrove crook farther in, a third turtle carcass hung motionless, scutes dulled grey. The live juveniles struggled in short, frantic bursts that only tightened the wraps around their flippers. "Jesus," he whispered. Then louder, because habit snapped back in. "We have multiple entanglements. Repeat multiple possible illegal ghost net deployment in restricted backwater." He caught himself mid-narration, jaw clenching. This wasn't a set piece. He fumbled for his phone with wet fingers and called the hotline again, voice stripped of performance this time. Coordinates, species count. One dead turtle confirmed. Bird entangled. Active gear hazard across channel. "Do not attempt full extraction alone," the dispatcher said. "Can you keep visual until officers arrive?" "I can hold position," Chris said. He looked at the turtles thrashing. "I can't just—" "Sir, hold position unless immediate life threat you can safely mitigate. Officers en route." He waited in the heat, mosquito-bitten and shaking with helpless energy, while the animals fought the net. By the time the first wildlife officer skiff pushed into the channel, Chris had memorized every route around him and hated all of them. 2 officers, 1 state marine patrol, 1 county environmental enforcement, plus a rehab volunteer in polarized glasses who looked at Chris once and then at his camera. "Put the paddle down and step to center," the officer said. Professional, clipped. Chris did as told. "They're getting worse. I can cut the upper." "No, you've done enough cutting for one morning." The words landed harder than Chris expected. He opened his mouth, shut it. Divers slid in from the skiff and moved with practiced speed, tagging lines, stabilizing turtles, clipping in sequence to prevent secondary wraps. The cormorant came free first, wrapped in a towel and hissing. 1 juvenile turtle emerged with deep groove wounds around both front flippers. The second took longer, weak and barely moving by the time they lifted it into a crate. The dead turtle stayed where it was until photographs were done. When immediate extractions finished, the county officer turned back to Chris. "This area is posted restricted habitat," she said. "You entered without authorization." "It followed from a public rescue site," he said, hearing how defensive he sounded. "I'm noting your statement. Also, handling protected wildlife without trained support can worsen injuries. Next time, call first and keep distance." There wasn't time next time. Her expression didn't change. "We'll discuss later. I need your footage, all raw files from first contact to discovery." He stared at her. "You're taking my footage?" "As potential evidence. Chain of custody. You may receive a copy request through proper channels. You are not to post identifiable location data or active operation details." The Marine Patrol officer added, "And if you already uploaded anything, remove it." Chris swallowed. "I posted no location." "Good. Keep it that way." He handed over memory cards with fingers that felt numb, watching weeks of financial oxygen disappear into an evidence bag. By afternoon, a 15-second clip had leaked anyway. No location tag, just him cutting line in dramatic first-person angle, gulls screaming overhead, text burned across the frame by someone else. "Influencer saves turtle, finds secret death net." It exploded. By sunset, his phone was a siren. New followers pouring in. National pages reposting. Comment wars igniting between people calling him a hero and people calling him a clout parasite. A sponsor texted, "Big traffic. Can we align a conservation campaign this week?" His landlord texted 10 minutes later, "Need payment by Friday." Then came the local posts. A commercial fishing association page released a statement about irresponsible trespass content creators staging wildlife scenes to target working families. A marina forum thread named Chris outright. Somebody posted a photo of his truck parked by the public launch and circled his plate. At 9:14 p.m., an unknown number messaged him, "Delete raw files." At 9:16, "You like cameras? We know your slip." At 9:20, "Keep your hero story online and see what real trouble looks like." Chris sat alone at his kitchen counter, still salt-streaked, scrolling through praise and threats and official emails in one endless mixed feed. In the sink, his dive knife lay beside a cracked coffee mug, both smeared with mangrove mud. The apartment hummed with cheap AC and distant thunder offshore. He opened his editing software out of reflex. The rescue clip auto-loaded from cloud backup. Perfect arc, perfect tension, perfect release. He could build a monster video by morning. He could pay rent. He could maybe keep sponsors from bailing. He could also turn a crime scene into content before officers finished mapping it, make himself the center again, and hand every skeptic proof they'd been right about him. His cursor hovered over the timeline while the first frame froze on the turtle's eye, wide with panic, reflecting his own camera back at him. For once, he didn't hit play. For once, he didn't hit play. Instead, he clicked the project closed, then sat in the dark reflection of his monitor until the screen went black and his own face stared back at him. Sunburned nose, bloodshot eyes, dried salt in his eyebrows. A man trying to decide if he was brave enough to be boring. His phone lit again. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Then he answered on speaker, thumb hovering over record. Static. Boat engines in the background. A male voice flattened like someone pinching his nose. "You like swimming in places you ain't supposed to?" Chris kept his voice even. "Who is this?" "You were warned. Delete everything. Stop talking to officers. You don't know what you're looking at out there." "I already turned raw files over." A beat. "Then pray that's all they got." The line clicked dead. Chris stared at the phone, then saved the call log screenshot to a new folder labeled Threats. His pulse thudded in his ears, but this was clean. Procedural fear now, not adrenaline. He forwarded the screenshot to the county officer's card photo he'd taken earlier and typed, "Received this just now. Unknown caller, I am preserving everything." 3 dots appeared almost immediately. "Do not engage further. Forward all messages/calls. We'll have patrol pass Marina tonight." He read that twice and felt stupidly grateful for the plainness of it. Not warm, not friendly, just structure. Another notification pushed over it. His biggest sponsor, Reef Strike Hydration. "We can help frame this into positive narrative. Heroic rescue angle plus awareness merch drop. Need your draft by 10 a.m. He typed half a reply, "Can't discuss active investigation," deleted it, and set the phone face down. A knock hit his door hard enough to make him flinch. Not the doorbell. Knuckles. He crossed the apartment and looked through the peephole. His downstairs neighbor, Marta, stood in flip-flops and a hoodie, arms folded. Behind her, in the parking lot, 2 teenagers on bikes were circling slow with phones out, filming his balcony. He opened the door. "You got fans," Marta said without preamble, jerking her chin toward the lot. "And 1 truck idling by the canal for 20 minutes. You expecting that?" "No." "You should probably not stand in your lit doorway like a lighthouse then." "Yeah," he stepped back. Marta's eyes flicked over his shoulder to the mess of gear on the floor. "This is because of that turtle thing?" He nodded. She held his gaze a second longer, then reached into her pocket and handed him a small canister. "Bear spray. It's old, but it works. Keep your blinds shut." Before he could answer, she was already heading down the stairs. Chris locked the door, slid the chain, and moved through the apartment, turning off lights one by one until only the kitchen stove clock glowed green. Then he sat again at his laptop and, because he couldn't sleep and couldn't not know, opened the local forum thread with his name in it. The top post had 300 comments now. A grainy still of him in the water under the pier. Caption: "How convenient camera was rolling again." Replies stacked fast. "He's baiting turtles for views. My cousin runs crab pots. This guy trespasses and blames fishermen for clicks." Those channels are full of old storm trash, not illegal syndicate. He found a dead juvenile, and your first instinct is PR. Someone check his permit history. By midnight, one user had posted his apartment complex name. Another posted his slip number at the marina. A moderator removed it, but screenshots kept resurfacing. He took more captures, added them to threats, and sent what seemed relevant to the officer. Then he forced himself to close every tab and open a blank document titled Timeline. 8:14 a.m. scream from Pier 817, entry water 8:21, cut 8:24 release, 8:27 hotline call, 8:33 kayak launch. He typed until his hands steadied. At 1:07 a.m., the same county officer called. "Robinson?" "Yeah." "This is Officer Delgado. We've logged your threat reports. Patrol did a pass. Nothing active now. I need to be direct. If this escalates, we can document and investigate, but we can't put an officer at your door 24/7. You need to keep your own footprint low." "Understood." "And tomorrow morning, 8:30, Environmental Unit wants your full statement at the district office. Bring all backup media not already surrendered. Unedited." Chris leaned back, staring at the ceiling stain above his sink. "You think they're going to charge me?" A pause. "I think this case is bigger than your channel. Be useful, not dramatic." The line ended there. At 8:22 a.m., Chris walked into the district office with 2 hard drives in his backpack and no coffee in his system. The fluorescent lobby smelled like old carpet and copier toner. A TV in the corner played muted weather radar loops. Delgado met him at the security desk. Same clipped energy as in the channel, but with dark circles under her eyes. "You sleep?" she asked. "Not really." "Good, less chance you perform." She led him to a conference room where a state investigator in a grey polo was setting up a laptop. Beside him sat a man Chris recognized from around the marinas, Captain Harlan Pike, spokesperson for Gulf Working Watermen Alliance. Clean white button-down, expensive watch, expression built for cameras. Chris stopped in the doorway. "What is he doing here?" Pike smiled without warmth. "Making sure evidence isn't shaped by internet drama." Delgado didn't look up from her folder. "Mr. Pike requested to observe portions related to gear identification. He does not control this process. Sit." Chris sat. For 2 hours they went frame by frame through his footage. Timestamp overlays, GPS metadata, wind direction, distances between mangrove markers. Every time his chest cam angle jerked, the investigator asked why. Every time he narrated, Delgado asked him to repeat exact wording into the record. At 9:11 a.m., the clip reached the moment he entered the restricted channel. "Did you see the posted habitat sign?" Investigator asked. "I saw signage near the cutmouth." "And entered anyway." "Yes." "Reason?" "Tracking recently released juvenile to assess condition." Pike snorted. "For followers." Chris's jaw tightened. For both, initially. Delgado tapped her pen. "Mr. Robinson, answer only the question asked." By 10:03, they reached the first view of the net maze. The room went quiet except for the laptop fan. Pike leaned forward. That panel could have drifted from storm debris. Investigator paused the frame and zoomed. A weighted lead line ran clean along the lower edge, Knott's recent mesh-size uniform. Not random trash. Storms don't tie fresh hitches, Delgado said. Pike sat back. Could still be abandoned legal gear. Without tags? The investigator asked. Pike shrugged. Tags tear off. On every segment? No answer. They continued. The dead turtle in roots appeared on screen. Even frozen, it looked small and wrong. Chris looked down at his hands and saw they were clenched hard enough to blanch his knuckles. At 11:16, questioning shifted from footage to his online activity. Did you authorize any teaser upload? Delgado asked. No, my cards were in evidence by then. Did you benefit financially from leak traffic? He hesitated. Ad revenue auto-runs on my channel if reposts drive click-through. So, yes. Yes. Will you disable monetization on related posts pending investigation? That was rent money, fuel money, groceries. He felt the numbers stack in his head like a collapsing tower. Yes, he said. Pike gave him a sidelong glance like he'd expected a fight, and was disappointed not to get one. When interview ended, Delgado handed him a printed advisory packet. Witness protocols, communication restrictions, digital preservation requirements. At the door, she lowered her voice. You did one thing right yesterday. You called. Keep doing that. And Robinson, if your people start crowdsourcing location guesses for this site, we shut all civilian access and you become the face of why. I hear you. Do you? Because hearing and listening are different businesses. Outside, noon heat slapped him in the face. His phone had 32 unread messages. He opened the top one from Reef Strike. Need confirmation of campaign tie-in by 1 p.m. or we pause contract. He typed, pause it, sent. They replied in under a minute. Understood, effective immediately. He stood in the parking lot feeling both lighter and poorer. By early afternoon, he was at the rehab center, not because anyone invited him, but because Delgado's packet included the intake contact for reporting witness follow-up. The building sat behind a chain-link gate with painted sea life murals fading in the sun. A hand-lettered sign at check-in read, Quiet reduces stress. Thank you. The receptionist recognized him and didn't hide it. We're not doing media, she said before he spoke. I'm not here to film. She looked at the chest harness strapped over his t-shirt. He unclipped it immediately, set it on the counter like surrender. I'm here to provide details on the juveniles from yesterday, and to ask if they made it. She made a call, then gestured to a plastic chair. Wait. He waited 40 minutes under humming AC, while volunteers carried bins of thawed squid down a hallway. Nobody asked for selfies. Nobody cared about his follower count. Finally, a woman in navy scrubs stepped into the lobby and held a clipboard against her chest. Chris Robinson? He stood. Yes, ma'am. I'm Dr. Lena Ortega. Her handshake was quick, dry, clinical. You were first contact yesterday? Yes. Come on. She led him through a restricted door into a treatment room that smelled of antiseptic and salt water. In shallow tubs, 2 juvenile greens floated with weighted wraps around their flippers to reduce swelling. One raised its head weakly when they approached, then settled. Both alive, Ortega said. Not stable enough to celebrate yet? Chris exhaled. The bird? Cormorant transferred to avian rehab. Prognosis guarded. She flipped a chart. Your statement said line was around neck and right foreflipper on first turtle under the pier. Did you feel resistance from below before cutting? Yeah, like it was anchored. Likely trailing segment attached to larger gear field. Matches what officers found. He nodded, eyes on the nearest turtle's flipper. The line groove looked like someone had pressed wire into clay. Ortega watched him watch it. "These aren't dramatic injuries online," she said quietly. "They're slow injuries. Compression, infection, buoyancy imbalance, weeks of energy loss before collapse." "I know." "No," she said, not unkindly. "You know words, not weight." The sentence landed clean. She moved to a computer terminal and pulled up his submitted footage, synced with medical timestamps. "I need one more thing from you. Uncompressed audio channel. Your evidence upload had auto noise reduction from app settings. We need original for respiration and distress interval estimates." He frowned. "There's a separate audio track in Cloud Backup. Raw. Can you access it now?" He logged in from the terminal while she stood beside him. The waveform loaded, jagged spikes of wind, gulls, splashing. She scrubbed to 8:19:47, where he first reached the turtle. The room filled with his own voice, too loud, amped, almost excited. "Let's go, little dude, we're getting you famous." Then wet, choking sounds, rapid, shallow exhalations, a scrape of knife against line, his breathing, crowd cheering above before the animal was free. His laugh, short, performative, when someone yelled, "Hero." Ortega paused at 8:20:31 and looked at him. "That gasp pattern? Panic with airway compromise. Every second mattered there. You moved fast, which helped. But listen to your framing." He couldn't, not fully. Heat surged up his neck. Nausea hit so suddenly he grabbed the back of a chair. "Bathroom," he muttered. He made it to a staff sink and dry heaved until his eyes watered. Nothing coming up but bitterness and shame. When he returned, Ortega handed him a paper cup of water and did not comment on his face. "I'm not showing this to humiliate you," she said. "I'm showing you because stories shape behavior. If people imitate adrenaline instead of protocol, we get more dead juveniles." Chris stared at the paused frame, the turtle's head breaking surface, his own camera catching the eye like polished glass. I thought it kept checking for me," he said, "like it was leading me to the net." Ortega shook her head. "Likely not. Juveniles repeat feeding routes. They return to familiar channels even after stress events because that's where forage is. You probably followed a turtle going where it always goes, straight back into danger humans left there. Not destiny, pattern, not a grateful animal guide, a map of repeated harm." He sat down hard on a stool. Ortega continued, gentler now. "You want to help? Stop selling miracles. Show systems. Report first. Distance second. Documentation only as directed." He nodded once, unable to pretend argument. "Good," she said. "Then do the boring part loudly." In his truck outside the rehab gate, Chris opened every platform dashboard one by one. First, he turned off monetization for the leaked rescue-adjacent clips and old hero compilations that were suddenly spiking from backlinks. Revenue estimates dropped in real time. He watched the numbers sink and didn't look away. Then he drafted a post. Deleted it. Drafted again without cinematic language, without insane, without you won't believe. Just facts. He recorded a single-take video from the driver's seat, phone propped against the steering wheel. No intro music. No logo sting. "My name is Chris Robinson. Yesterday I filmed a turtle entanglement and followed it into a restricted mangrove area where officers found more trapped wildlife and illegal gear. I made mistakes, entering restricted habitat, narrating like this was content while an animal was in distress, and feeding a hero narrative that is not accurate. The turtle did not lead me like a movie scene. It likely returned to a habitual route that has become dangerous because of repeated gear loss and dumping. If you see entangled wildlife, call trained rescue first. Keep distance. Don't crowd. Don't chase clips. I am cooperating fully with investigators and I will not share location details. I'm also offering my boats, drone time, and mapping support to licensed responders if they want it, under their protocols, not mine. He stopped recording. No cuts, no thumbnail face. His thumb hovered over upload. He hit post. Comments poured in within minutes, some supportive, many furious. PR cleanup, LOL bro, folded to government pressure. Finally, accountability. You just killed your channel. Can volunteers join cleanup? That last one repeated in different words from dozens of accounts. People wanted to do something, even if they didn't know what. Chris opened a new email addressed to Officer Delgado, copying the district investigator and the rehab center intake contact. I can provide vessel transport, drone orthomosaic mapping, and volunteer signal boost under agency direction. No monetization, no location tags, no live streams. If useful, tell me where to plug in. He sent it before he could overthink. The reply came an hour later. Received. Coordination meeting tomorrow, 700, County Marina classroom. Attendance does not grant field access. Bring FAA cert and vessel docs. Not a thank you. A door cracked open half an inch. As evening settled over the canal, Chris carried his camera rigs from his truck to his apartment and set them in a closet. Lenses capped, batteries removed. On the kitchen counter, he left only a notepad, a pen, and Delgado's advisory packet. His phone buzzed with a voicemail from his landlord, then another from a brand rep backing out, then a text from Marta downstairs. Quiet tonight, you good? He replied. Working on it. He stood at the window with blinds half closed, looking out at the dark ribbon of canal water catching dock lights in broken lines. Somewhere beyond the condos and marinas, tide moved through mangrove channels, whether anyone watched or not, carrying silt, bait fish, plastic fragments, and the routes juvenile turtles had followed long before his channel existed. For the first time in years, he had no upload schedule in his head. Only a start time, 700. County Marina classroom, bring documents. Shut up and listen. Only a start time, 700. County Marina classroom, bring documents. Shut up and listen. Chris set 3 alarms anyway. At 2:11 a.m., he woke to the sound of metal scraping concrete below his window. He froze in bed, listening. A low curse. Another scrape. Then the hollow clunk of something dropped near the stairwell. He reached for the bear spray Marta had given him, thumbed his phone camera on, and eased the blinds apart 1 inch. A man in a dark rain jacket was crouched by Chris's truck, back turned, cap pulled low, not stealing catalytic converters, not rummaging, focused, deliberate, near the rear tire and hitch. Chris lifted the phone to record. The man stood suddenly, glanced up toward the building as if he felt eyes on him, then walked out of frame fast. By the time Chris got downstairs in shoes and shaking hands, the lot was empty except for idling insects and his own pulse. His port trailer lock had been cut clean through. His kayak straps were sliced. One tire on the truck was hissing flat. On the truck's side panel, drawn with something greasy and black, were 3 words, "Stay in your lane." He shot photos, called Delgado, then called non-emergency dispatch. While waiting for patrol, he checked the John boat at the canal dock behind the building. Its fuel line had been pulled and kinked. The outboard cowling sat crooked, screws missing. By dawn, a report number sat in his notes app beside rent due date and meeting address. At 6:38 a.m., his channel manager dashboard pinged with a formal notice. Temporary demonetization review for content tied to active legal dispute and potential harmful conduct. Attached was a legal letter from Gulf Working Waterman Alliance Council citing defamation, interference with commerce, and unauthorized habitat entry. Captain Harlan Pike's signature block sat at the bottom, like a dare. If the strike held, Chris's back catalogue revenue would freeze. If sponsors treated the legal threat as risk, they'd keep walking. If he got painted as a liar before charges landed on anyone else, he'd be radioactive to both brands and agencies. At 6:51, he rolled into the county marina lot on his spare tire and found two local stringers already outside the classroom door, camera bags ready, waiting for him. "Chris, did you stage the turtle clip?" one called. "Are you being charged?" "Is this retaliation from fishermen?" He kept walking, shoulders tight, eyes on the cinder block wall ahead. No answer gave them less to cut into B-roll. Inside, folding chairs formed two rows facing a whiteboard map of the estuary. Delgado stood beside it with a stack of binders. State officers, county habitat staff, 2 county marine patrol observers, 3 commercial captains with weathered hands and wary expressions. Pike at the back, immaculate again, speaking quietly to a man in a blazer. Delgado started without ceremony. "This is a controlled operation planning brief, not a town hall, not content. Phones down." A county tech clicked through slides. Known debris field, tide windows, access constraints, legal boundaries, wildlife injury reports. Then came a heat map of social posts from the last 24 hours. Red clusters circling guesses about the restricted channel. "We have had 37 civilian vessels probe adjacent mangroves since yesterday," the tech said. 2 drone incursions, 1 kayak trespass live-streamed for 17 minutes before removal. Every eye in the room shifted briefly to Chris. He didn't flinch. "I didn't share coordinates." "No," Delgado said, "but narratives travel faster than disclaimers." Pike raised a hand like he was in a board meeting. "And who takes responsibility when online hysteria cripples working access lanes?" A habitat manager answered before Delgado could. "The lane closure is because protected juveniles are being strangled in untagged mesh." Pike spread his palms. "Alleged." Delgado's voice flattened. "We are done with semantics. Here are stakes. If we don't clear primary panels before next spring tide cycle, current load tightens them into seagrass corridors. That means more turtles, manatees, birds, more carcasses, more closures for everyone." She looked at Chris directly. Robinson offered assets. At this time, due ongoing review and safety concerns, he is approved for logistics support only. No independent field entry. No posting operational details. So that was it. He kept his face neutral and nodded once. Useful, not dramatic. Then Pike's counsel stood and distributed envelopes. One landed in front of Chris. "Civil notice," the attorney said. "Preservation demand and cease and desist regarding defamatory publication." Chris opened it. 12 pages of threat language, immediate retraction demands, warning that further statements, implying criminal conduct by association, would trigger injunctive action. He laughed once, sharp and unbelieving, then stopped himself. This was the antagonist in a pressed shirt, not shouting, just paperwork as a weapon. By the time briefing ended, his livelihood was under legal cloud. His equipment was sabotaged. His name was mud in half the county, and he had just been benched from the only thing he could do well. As he stepped outside, one stringer lifted a camera. "Chris, comment on the cease and desist." He held up the envelope. No comment. And meant it. The first coordinated sweep launched at 1:10 p.m. from a side ramp away from public eyes. Chris stayed on shore under a pop-up tent with a county laptop, logging incoming coordinates from official boats and drone pilots. He had built this kind of live map for storm debris before, layers, hazard points, timestamps, but never while feeling like a suspect in his own software. At 1:42, Diver Team Alpha marked 2 rope clusters and 1 net curtain fragment. At 1:49, Bravo reported heavy turbidity. Probable prop wash from unauthorized vessel outside perimeter. Delgado's voice came over radio. Marine units, Titan exclusion. No warnings, sight and move. By 2:03, Chris's screen lit with 6 red pings at once. Unauthorized AIS signatures entering from the north cut. He pushed to his feet. Through mangrove breaks, he could see wakes stacking white in the distance. Small center consoles, at least 4, maybe 5, some with people standing at bows, filming with phones. Delgado, north ingress breach, he said into the handheld. Copy, we're on them. Then someone in the public crowd on shore screamed, There, that's the turtle place. More kayaks slid in from a launch downshore, paddlers craning for footage. Chris's stomach dropped. Location leak had gone kinetic. Officers split to intercept civilians. Divers had to surface early for safety. Bravo reported entanglement hazards still uncut at marker B7. Currents were turning with tide. Stand down all subsurface ops, Delgado ordered. Rage edged every word. Repeat, stand down until zone clear. Hours of planning evaporated in 90 seconds. Then came the call none of them wanted. Command, this is Alpha. We have visual on Juvenile, unresponsive, wrapped under secondary strand near B7, unable to access safely with boat traffic wake. Chris gripped the map table so hard it shook. Can we pole reach from East Bank? No safe angle, need full quiet water and diver back in. We don't have it. By the time Marine Patrol shoved the last trespass boat out and deputies blocked the launch road, the tide had dropped another foot and mudflats boxed access. Alpha re-entered at 3:12. At 3:19 they recovered the Juvenile. Dead. The radio went quiet in that way it only does when professionals choose silence over cursing. Delgado returned to the command tent soaked and furious, gloves streaked black with muck. She didn't yell at Chris. That was worse. Who leaked? He asked. She pulled off her cap. Don't know yet. Could be scraped from comments, could be scanner traffic, could be someone in this operation. Doesn't matter right now. It matters. Right now, she repeated. It's dead anyway. He looked at the map where B7 blinked red, time-stamped, sterile. A point on a screen where an animal had run out of time while humans chased footage and fought about blame. He tasted bile. At 4:05, his own phone buzzed with another platform alert. Account restrictions expanded pending review of coordinated harmful events. Someone had mass-reported him as organizing the trespass swarm. Live features disabled, brand partnership tab locked. He showed Delgado. She read it, expression unreadable. Perception is a weapon, she said. Today, someone used it well. Do you think I leaked? She met his eyes for a long beat. I think you are either a target, a liability, or both. I haven't decided which. The words hit like surf in winter, cold, blunt, impossible to argue with. At sunset, he went to his marina slip to check what was left of his gear and found his John boat half submerged, stern low, bilge pump dead. Someone had pulled the drain plug and left it on the dock, neatly, like a signature. Insurance had lapsed last month. He sat on a piling until dark, shoes wet, phone face down, watching his reflection break apart in oily ripples, and wondering if he had just killed his own chance to help by ever turning on a camera in the first place. Dr. Lena Ortega washed her hands for the 4th time, though she'd already scrubbed between cases and had no blood left on her gloves. The water in the rehab prep sink ran lukewarm, metallic. She turned it off and braced both palms on stainless steel until the tremor in her forearms settled. Exam room 3 held the Juvenile from B7 under a white sheet. Even dead, it was light enough for one tech to carry. She hated that part, the physics of it. How little mass stood between survival and not. From down the hall came the soft thunk of freezer drawers, the hum of oxygen pumps, a volunteer whispering as if grief had hearing. Lena stripped her gloves, tossed them, and stared at the clock. 8:27 p.m. She should finish necropsy notes. She should call the state lab. She should not walk out to the back dock where she'd seen Chris, sitting on an overturned bait bucket 20 minutes ago, elbows on knees, looking like someone had switched off all his external settings. She went anyway. Night air carried mangrove tannin and diesel. Chris didn't look up when she approached. "They brought B7 in?" he asked. She sat on the dock 2 feet away, not touching. "Yes." He nodded once, eyes on black water. "I'm sorry." "I know." Silence stretched. Frogs clicked in reeds. Lena had trained herself for years to speak in controlled doses, findings, probabilities, plans. Precision kept panic out. Precision kept you from saying that sometimes every protocol still ended with a white sheet and a weight in your ribs. Tonight, precision felt brittle. "When I was 24, she said, I worked a red tide event on the Atlantic side. First year out of residency. I thought if we just moved fast enough, triaged hard enough, we could beat the numbers." Chris turned slightly, listening. "We partnered with a media crew to push hotline awareness. Good intentions. They aired beautiful footage with landmarks in the background. Within 48 hours, we had crowds at every intake beach. Well-meaning people, tourists, wannabe rescuers. Some helped. Some chased stressed animals for photos. One intern got knocked down by a boat backing off a sandbar." She swallowed. The memory was still sharp, still salted. "My mentor, Dr. Elise Warren, went out on a night retrieval after a location leak. She never came back to dock. Engine fouled in abandoned line. They found her skiff at dawn." Chris went very still. "I don't tell that story because I want sympathy," Lena said. "I tell it because every time I hear someone narrate suffering like a trailer voiceover, I can feel that weak in my teeth." She pressed her thumb into her palm until it hurt. "I built rules after that. Hard rules. No media on treatment floor. No feel-good myths. No hero language. It kept me functioning. It also made me sharp with people trying to help the wrong way." He stared at the dark channel. "I was trying to help the wrong way." "Yes." Another pause. Not cruel, just true. She exhaled shakily and hated that he could hear it. "And the part I don't say out loud is, I'm tired. Tired of calling outcomes mixed, when I mean devastating. Tired of pretending this doesn't get under my skin because if I admit it does, I'm afraid I won't be able to walk back into exam 3 tomorrow." Chris finally looked at her then, not with audience eyes, not scanning for the quotable line, just human attention. "You don't have to pretend with me," he said softly. A laugh escaped her, brief and wrecked. "That might be the first useful sentence you've said to me." He almost smiled. Almost. She stood before sitting too long, made honesty dangerous. "Get some sleep if you can. We brief at 6. At the gate, she stopped without turning around. "For what it's worth, people can learn. I've seen worse than you learn slower." Then she walked back inside, shoulders tight but lighter by a fraction, and let herself cry exactly 90 seconds in the supply closet before returning to her charts. At 11:43 p.m., Chris's phone exploded with calls. Delgado first. "Where are you?" "Apartment." "Stay there. Lock down. Do not go to Marina." Too late. Another call cut in. Marta screaming over wind. "Chris, your dock is on fire." He was in his truck before Delgado could finish swearing at him over speaker. Flames licked orange against the canal sky by the time he turned into the complex. Not his building. Lower docks, 3 slips over, where County had temporarily staged seized derelict gear bundles for morning transport. Fire crews were already on scene, hoses hissing. Burning nylon gave off a chemical stench that coated the back of his throat. Deputies shoved residents behind tape. Marta grabbed his arm. 2 guys in a skiff cut loose right before it lit. I got partial numbers. She held up her phone with a blurry video. Delgado arrived 10 minutes later, face hard as poured concrete. She watched the flames, then took Marta's phone and handed it to a deputy. This was evidence, she said quietly. Tagged, catalogued, waiting transfer. How much is gone? Chris asked. Enough. A state investigator jogged over, reins starting in thin diagonal lines. Captain Pike's trawler left berth 40 minutes ago, he said to Delgado. AIS pinged West Channel, then went dark. Delgado's jaw flexed. Of course it did. Judge signed limited warrant tonight on untagged mesh based on your affidavits, he added. Service team was assembling for dawn. Dawn was now too late, and everyone knew it. Wind picked up hard, pushing sparks sideways over black water. Thunder rolled close. Another officer ran in with a tablet. Radar update. Tropical squall cell accelerating. Earliest impact 0900, maybe sooner. If remaining ghost panel at primary site isn't cut before tide turn, we lose access for at least 48 hours. And if someone is out there stripping it tonight, Delgado said, we lose chain, witnesses, everything. She turned to Chris abruptly. Your drone fleet, what's operational? He blinked. 1 Mavic, 1 fixed wing. Fixed wing needs daylight. Mavic can fly low in rain if gusts stay under spec. Boat, sunk. Can you crew from air with patrol transport? Yes. She held his gaze like she was weighing a blade in her hand. If we deploy, this is enforcement adjacent under storm conditions. High risk, zero internet, full evidence protocol. You take one order wrong, you're off. Understood. Also, she added, voice lower, we intercepted a message board thread 15 minutes ago. Someone posted your apartment unit number with, handle him before sunrise. You are not going home after this. The uncertainty in his chest hardened into something functional. Across the canal, flames finally dropped under foam. Sirens faded to radio chatter and rain. Delgado keyed her mic. All units, this is command. Initiate emergency tide window response. Assemble at County Marine Base in 30. We go now. Chris looked once at the smoking dock, at the curled black remains of rope that had been evidence an hour ago, then climbed into the back of a patrol truck with his drone case on his knees, and no idea if they were heading toward a rescue, an arrest, or an ambush. Then climbed into the back of a patrol truck with his drone case on his knees, and no idea if they were heading toward a rescue, an arrest, or an ambush. County Marine Base looked like a floodlit bunker in the rain. Concrete ramp, metal sheds, 3 skiffs idling hot, radios shouting over each other. Delgado stood under a sodium lamp with a laminated chartboard getting soaked and ignoring it. Window is 90 minutes before squall line closes, she snapped as Chris jumped down. Primary objective, remove remaining weighted panel at B corridor culvert. Secondary, intercept active gear movers. Tertiary, nobody dies for evidence. She pointed at him. Robinson, aerial spotter and tide drift relay. No live stream, no narration, no independent heroics. He nodded. Copy. Lena was already at the mobile triage van, loading warmed blankets, IV kits and transport tubs with a tech. Their eyes met for half a second. No smile. Just do your job. By 1:32 a.m., Chris was strapped into the bow seat of Patrol Skiff 2, drone controller in a weather hood, palms slick despite the gloves. Rain came sideways, peppering the tablet screen. He launched low to keep wind shear manageable, propellers whining into blackness. Thermal overlay blinked on. Skiff signatures, mangrove banks, narrow tide flow, and then the ghost panel. An ugly rectangular chill in the water column where currents snagged and curled. Command, visual on primary net. Still loaded. 2 large floats at north edge, Chris said. Copy. Dive team entering. 3 divers rolled in downstream, headlamps strobing beneath the surface. On his screen, white-hot manatee shapes ghosted far off to the east channel, moving away. Good. Then another heat source slid in from the west cut. A long trawler silhouette running dark. No nav lights. AIS blank. Chris zoomed. Name paint half-sanded but readable in infrared where rain beaded. Marlin Grace. Pike's boat. Command, unknown trawler west ingress dark run, 40 seconds out from Culvert Lane. Delgado's voice cracked over static. All units challenge and block. Patrol skiff. 1 surged across the channel, blue lights punching rain. Loud hailer boomed, Marlin Grace, cut throttle and heave to. The trawler answered by throttling up. Of course, Delgado muttered. On Chris's drone feed, deckhands in rain slickers hauled something over the side. A rope train with fresh mesh bundles clipped in. They weren't just collecting evidence. They were resetting gear or stripping tags before seizure. One man swung a pole at the incoming patrol skiff, trying to foul its bow rail. Deck activity recorded, Chris said, forcing his voice flat. Multiple individuals deploying or retrieving untagged mesh. Then the operation went bad in an instant. At the culvert, dive lead shouted, "Support line snapped. Panel shifting." On screen, the weighted ghost net peeled like a curtain and surged with the current toward the concrete culvert mouth. 2 small turtle heat signatures flared bright against it, pinned and spinning. Skiff 1 grounded shoal. "We can't reach," someone yelled. "Dive team, break off," Delgado ordered. "They'll be crushed at the culvert," dive lead fired back. Chris looked up from the screen to the real channel. Black water boiling, patrol skiff hung sideways on mud. Divers fighting flow, net drawing tight around 2 live juveniles. No one had angle. "Command, I need a shallow John with thrust," Chris said. "Negative," Delgado shot back. "You are not cleared." "You don't have time for cleared." "Robinson!" He was already moving. A counter-utility John sat tied to the side dock, tiller motor humming from standby. He jumped in, kicked the line free, and shoved off as 2 officers cursed and reached too late. "Damn it!" Delgado roared into comms. "Skiff 2, cover him. If he flips, I'm not fishing him out myself." Chris gunned the John through knee-deep chop. Bow slapping, mangrove roots close enough to tear skin. The net panel was 20 yards from the culvert now, lead line grinding the concrete lip. 1 turtle rolled belly up, flipper trapped. The other vanished under mesh. He dropped anchor upstream at a stupid angle, wrong for safety, right for leverage, and rammed throttle forward while the stern swung. Engine wash hit the net broadside, buying inches, then a foot, then a brief pocket of slack. "Slack on panel! Move!" he shouted. Divers slammed in. 1 knifed the lead line. Another reached blind under mesh, found shell, hauled. A turtle burst free and kicked weakly towards surface. The second stayed stuck, neck cinched. "Hold it!" dive lead yelled. The anchor dragged. Chris shoved throttle harder until the tiller vibrated like it might shear off. The John slewed toward mangrove roots. Spray blinded him. He kept thrust steady by feel. Through rain and diesel haze he heard a voice from the trawler, amplified by rage and distance. "You're sinking your own case, influencer." Pike stood at his rail in a yellow storm coat, one hand gripping the cabin, the other pointing straight at Chris like he was naming him for a jury. "This is legal gear. He's tampering. Film that." Chris did film, but not himself. He swung his chest cam toward the trawler deck, locked horizon, and kept silent, while timestamp and GPS stamped every frame. Deckhands shoving untagged bundles overboard. Pike shouting commands. One crewman hacking cereal plates off a winch with a hatchet. "Command, Chris said through clenched teeth. Recording active destruction of identifiers on Marlin Grace, heading South Edge Channel 3. Sending live coordinates. Received, Delgado said, voice now all steel. State units en route to intercept. At the culvert, dive lead surfaced with the second turtle cradled against his chest. Limp but alive. Both out. Repeat, both out. Copy, Delgado shouted. Medical receive now. Chris eased throttle. The second he did, the anchor line snapped with a crack, and the John lurched broadside. He nearly went over. Skiff 2 came in hard, throwing a tow line. Hook up, idiot! An officer bellowed. Chris clipped in, shaking. As they hauled him clear, his drone alarm shrieked low battery. He brought it home by hand in gusting rain, landing blind on the skiff deck with inches to spare. Behind them, Marlin Grace tried for the inlet and ran straight into 2 state patrol hulls knifing through the squall. The trawler stop was not clean. At the inlet mouth, patrol lights strobed against rain sheets. Pike kept throttling until a state officer fired a flare across his bow and another vessel boxed his stern. When officers boarded, one deckhand bolted for the cabin with a phone. Chris, still at aerial station from Skiff 2, caught the man at the window smashing a hard drive against the sill before an officer tackled him. Got visual of device destruction. 21134, Chris called. Copy, keep eyes, Delgado replied. Pike refused orders, refused cuffs, refused to answer anything except to shout over the wind. This is harassment. You don't shut down commerce because a YouTuber wants a redemption arc. An officer pinned his arms. Pike twisted and spat water. He trespassed. He staged this. Check his channel. Delgado stepped onto the trawler deck last, rain streaming off her cap brim. She didn't raise her voice. Captain Harlan Pike, you are being detained pending warrant service related to illegal gear deployment, habitat violations, evidence destruction, and interference with lawful rescue operations. Pike laughed in her face. On his word? She glanced toward Chris's skiff. On your deck. He looked past her and saw Chris filming with a dead serious expression. No commentary, no chest thumping, just evidence. Pike's defiance sharpened. Then he goes down too. Unauthorized entry, animal handling, obstruction tonight. You let him play deputy and now you'll own that. Delgado's jaw tightened. Write your complaint. By dawn, everyone was soaked, bruised, and running on caffeine and adrenaline fumes. 2 turtles were in Lena's transport tubs getting oxygen and warmed fluids. The ghost panel lay coiled in tagged sections on a flatbed under tarp. Marlin Grace sat impounded with officers photographing every inch. Chris sat on an overturned crate in the command shed, while an evidence tech mirrored his SD cards. Need all originals, the tech said without looking up, including clips that may implicate you in procedural violations. He nodded. Take them. He signed chain of custody forms with cramped fingers. Next table over, Pike's attorney had already arrived and was pressing for immediate release, arguing emergency overreach, contaminated evidence, unlawful reliance on a civilian witness with financial motive, and documented theatrics. Pike, in dry, borrowed clothes now, watched Chris through the open shed door with pure contempt. You think this saves you? He said when an officer looked away. You'll be broke before arraignment. Chris held his gaze. Maybe. No, maybe. I'll bury you in paper. Chris almost said something petty, satisfying, stupid. Instead, then I'll spend what I've got on truth. Pike scoffed, but there was a flicker there now. Not fear exactly, but recalculation. The fight moved to court 2 weeks later, and Pike fought like a man who'd made a career of tides and loopholes. His counsel filed motions to suppress drone footage, to discredit Chris as an unreliable narrator, to sever evidence obtained after civilian interference. On day 3 of hearings, Chris took the stand in a plain button-down that still smelled faintly of detergent and dock rope. Defense counsel paced. "Mr. Robinson, is it true you built your livelihood by dramatizing wildlife encounters?" "Yes." "Is it true you entered restricted habitat illegally on the day in question?" "Yes." "Is it true you ignored a direct command during the storm operation?" "Yes." A small smile from counsel, like checkmate lining up. "So why should this court trust your footage, your coordinates, your interpretations of what you saw?" Chris looked at the judge, then at Pike, then back. "Don't trust my interpretations," he said. "Trust the timestamps, metadata, chain logs, matching mesh recovered from his vessel, and the parts where I look bad that I still turned over." He asked the clerk for Exhibit 47, raw chest cam segment from the culvert. No edits, no music. You could hear officers yelling at him to hold position, hear him swear when the anchor slipped, hear dive lead call both turtles free. You could also see Marlin Grace, deckhands cutting identifiers in the same unbroken sequence as his coordinate transmission. The courtroom watched in uncomfortable silence. Defense tried again. "And your motive for this newfound transparency?" Chris answered before his lawyer could object. "Because a turtle died while we argued about optics." By sentencing, the court had enough. Illegal deployment of untagged gear, habitat violations, obstruction, evidence destruction, and conspiracy counts tied to 2 operators beyond Pike. Conviction landed heavy and public. Pike stood rigid as penalties were read, face drained of TV-ready polish. When deputies moved to escort him out, he twisted once toward Chris in the gallery. "This coast will chew you up," he said, low and venomous. Chris didn't stand. It already did. The morning after sentencing, storm cleanup tarps still flapped at County Base. Chris helped unload derelict line bales in silence until his shoulders burned. No cameras, just wet rope, rust hooks, paperwork. Delgado found him by the scale station, coffee gone cold in her hand. "Judge signed expanded sweep funding," she said. "Quarterly removals, rapid response trailer, new signage budget. Your footage held." He nodded, waiting for the but. She gave it. "You still get cited for initial restricted entry." "Fair." "And for unauthorized maneuver during emergency op, administrative reprimand attached to volunteer clearance." "Also fair." She studied him a moment. "You're not arguing today?" "Too tired." "Good." A beat. "For what it's worth, you were useful." From Delgado, it sounded like a medal. Lena rolled a transport cart past them with 2 empty turtle tubs and stopped. "Useful and reckless can coexist," she said dryly. Chris managed a tired smile. "I'm trying to reduce one of those." She tipped her head toward the rehab van. "Come see your culvert patient before transfer." Inside, one juvenile floated with a soft neoprene bandage around its neck groove, eyes clearer now. It lifted its head when Lena touched the water. "Still guarded," she said, checking chart notes, "but fighting." Chris stood very still, hands behind his back so he wouldn't reach in. "I'm sorry," he whispered, not sure whether he meant to this turtle, the one from B7, or all of them. Lena heard him anyway. Outside, rain finally broke, sunlight punching through cloud in bright, hard slices over the mangroves. Workers bolted new temporary signs onto launch posts. "Entangled wildlife? Call first. Keep distance." Chris read the sign twice. His phone buzzed with platform updates. Appeal denied on old monetized rescues. Channel revenue down 60%. Partnership tab reopened for educational classification if he agreed to strict compliance terms. It looked like survival, not success. He took it. Marta texted a photo of his repaired trailer lock with caption, "Upgraded. You owe me empanadas. He laughed for the first time in days. Crisis mode was over. Consequences were not. 3 weeks later, after evening rounds, Lena found Chris on the rehab dock, re-rigging a busted drone prop guard under a work light. Humid air carried jasmine from somewhere beyond the parking lot. "You know we have technicians for that," she said. He didn't look up. "They do important things. I break things." She leaned on the railing. "You've been avoiding me outside operational conversations." He set the screwdriver down slowly. "I wasn't sure I'd earned non-operational." "That's not an answer." He blew out a breath. "I don't know how to do this without turning it into content or apology speech." "Try plain language," she said. He met her eyes then. No camera between them. "Plain language. I like being around you. Not because you make me better for the internet, because you make me less fake. And that scares me more than storms." Lena's expression shifted, guard lowering by degrees she couldn't hide fast enough. "You think you're the only one scared?" she asked. He waited. She folded her arms tight, then forced them loose. "I have spent years building walls so I can keep doing my job. People burn out, people drown, people promise they care and disappear when it gets tedious and ugly. You showed up as literally the worst version of that archetype. Ouch. Accurate, but ouch. And then," she said, voice roughening, "you kept showing up after the views dropped, after legal threats, after everyone stopped clapping. You listened, mostly. Working on consistently." A small smile tugged at her mouth and vanished. "The problem is that now I look for you on bad days. And that is inconvenient." He stepped closer, careful, giving her room to step back. She didn't. "I don't want convenient," he said quietly. "I want real. Slow if you need slow. Boundaries if you need boundaries. I can do boring now." She laughed under her breath. "Boring is underrated." Silence settled, warm and electric. Frogs clicked in the reeds. Somewhere inside, a monitor beeped steady. Lena looked out over the dark water. "When Elise died, I decided attachment was a liability. Colleagues, yes. Team, yes. Anything else? No. I told myself it was discipline. Maybe some of it was fear." Chris didn't reach for her yet. "You don't owe me a rewrite of your rules." "No," she said, "but I can choose new ones." She turned back to him fully. "Rule 1. If we try this, no filming us. Ever. Not for authenticity points, not for keeping it real." "Understood." Rule 2. If one of us thinks the other is slipping into savior nonsense or martyr nonsense, we say it immediately." "Agreed." Rule 3. We do not let this interfere with patient care, chain protocols, or field command. "Absolutely." She inhaled, held it, then let truth land without clinical packaging. "And plain language from my side. I'm in love with you, Chris. I didn't mean to be. I fought it. I lost. I'm tired of pretending that's not true." For a second, he just stared, like he'd misheard over wind that wasn't there. "Say it again," he whispered. She rolled her eyes, but her voice shook. "I love you. Don't make me submit it in triplicate." He laughed, half a choke, and finally reached for her. "I love you too, not as redemption, not as penance. Just you." She touched his face with both hands, thumbs rough from gloves and antiseptic soap, and kissed him, slow, certain, no audience. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his. "Boring date tomorrow?" he asked. Define boring. "Cuban place by the drawbridge, no uniforms, no radios unless emergency." "Wildly irresponsible," she murmured. "I accept." Inside the clinic, Delgado's voice barked down a hallway. "If someone left muddy boots in my intake bay again, I will start naming names." Lena smiled against Chris's shoulder. "Romance in our ecosystem." He kissed her temple. "Wouldn't trade it." Pre-dawn, late nesting season. The public pier looked almost like the morning everything broke. Joggers, gulls, coffee cups, pink light folding over steel blue water. But the rail now held new signs in 3 languages. A volunteer table sat by the access path with hotline cards, red filter flashlights, and a laminated do/don't board. 2 county rapid response trailers waited in the lot, winches and line bins neatly tagged. Chris stood beside a tripod, framing a shot without dramatic angles. His channel had stabilized at a smaller number, comments slower, sponsorship modest and boring. He could pay rent. Barely. He slept better. Marta waved from behind the volunteer table. "You're on in 2 minutes, Ocean Boy." "Please never call me that again." No promises. Delgado, now heading county multi-agency sweep coordination, walked past with a clipboard and muttered, "If your intro exceeds 10 seconds, I'm cutting power." "Noted, ma'am." Lena arrived in plain clothes with a coffee for him and a clipboard for herself, because habits die hard. She bumped his hip with hers. Survey team offshore reported a tagged juvenile in North Bay seagrass at 5:12, she said. He felt his chest tighten. "Tag number?" She smiled. "Pending confirmation. Just a tagged juvenile sighting. Nothing we can tie to any single incident yet. A small data point. Nothing cinematic. Nothing personal. Just proof that careful tracking, rehab and route protection were starting to draw a clearer map. Collective proof." He clipped a small lav mic to his shirt, looked once at Lena, once at the water, and hit record. "No stunts today," he said to camera, voice steady. "If you see entangled wildlife, call trained rescue first. Keep distance. We're out with county teams mapping derelict gear removal routes and showing exactly how this work happens." He nodded toward the volunteers, the signage, the trailers, the officers launching skiffs in orderly sequence. "Attention helps," he said, "but only if it serves protection." He ended the take without flourish. As the sun broke over the pier, a juvenile turtle surfaced beyond the pilings. Just a dark shell, one breath, gone again into open water. Chris didn't chase it. He watched the ring fade, then turned back to the team.